Now Ayrshire Radio Podcast presents Ayrshire Insights with Elliot Boyce.
Welcome back to Ayrshire Insights with me, Elliot Boyce, and as promised, we have a brilliant guest on today's show for this week's Local Legend Spotlight. We've got Danny Anderson of Freckfest and Andersonic. Danny, a massive thanks for coming on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Elliot. This is quite unexpected, but yeah, okay.
So before we find out about how it all started, we want to know more about you. So first of all, 80s music or 90s?
Oh, 80s, yeah.
Rock and roll or indie?
Rock and roll.
And a festival or an intimate concert?
Difficult one. An intimate concert, yeah.
Coming up, we're going to hear how a dream became a reality for Danny.
Tune in live every Sunday from 10 a.m. for Ayrshire Insights with Elliot Boyce.
Only on Now Ayrshire Radio.
Now Ayrshire.
Hearing
how it all began. So Danny, where did you grow up?
I was an army child, so it was really army bases, and I could remember lots of soldiers walking around in camouflage and things like that. So it would have been at Bovington Camp, where the tank museum is, and then it was Glasgow. I was brought up in Glasgow. My father left the army, and it was just wandering around the streets of Glasgow.
Brilliant. Now, what was your first ever job?
First ever job, after school, I went straight into National Air Traffic Services. I became a trainee engineer. They took me to Bletchley Park, where they did the code breakers thing, and they trained me up in electronics. I think they were looking for computer geeks to come and do computing, and so I started working for them, and they posted me to the Air Traffic Control Centre at Prestwick, where I worked for 20 years. Doing things like radar and communications, air-ground air communications, talking to planes, talking to other airports and things like that. So I was, talking to airports and air traffic control centres around the Atlantic, and also data processing for the oceanic system, things like that. That's what I worked on. That was my first job, and I was in that job for 20 years. And then when it got privatised, I left in about 2022.
So from there, how did you move into what you're doing just now? Tell us a bit about what you do and who is Danny Anderson now?
Well, how I got into it first was at the time when I was working for National Air Traffic Services. A couple of other people who I worked with, we decided to run a music studio and a rehearsal studio in Irvine, and that was the late 80s and early 90s. We had the Toucan studio. Lots of bands came through that, using it for recording and rehearsal and stuff. And when we were working there, we got asked to do more and more events. We got asked to do PA systems at wee concerts and things like that. So that kind of drew us into it. And then when I left National Air Traffic Services, I just thought, well, this is something I can do. A lot of the things I learned about electronics and all that kind of stuff was useful in the music industry, and also having run a recording studio and a rehearsal studio and been in a band. This all kind of steered me in the direction of working in the music and wider events industry. So started off doing PA systems, and it just kind of snowballed from there. You take on a few employees, it gets a bit bigger, you end up doing corporate events, concerts, all sorts of different type of events came our way over a number of years, until we found ourselves doing pretty big corporate events, even down in London and other parts of the UK, where we're doing quite substantial high budget events.
So was that through Andersonic, or was that another company?
Well, that was my company called Zysys, which had a kind of interesting history as well, in that it started off as a product development company, and then it kind of it morphed into a production and events company.
Fantastic, amazing journey, working with National Air Traffic Service to then massively in the event world. Zysys no longer now. What was the journey with that? What happened?
Well, COVID came along. All the employees I had found other jobs, and we never fell out. It was all very amicable. Went through the COVID crisis, and at the end of it just wasn't really viable to bring it back again. Just couldn't. People had either went freelance or were working for other companies, even different careers. And I decided that I would just become a freelance, so work in the events industry as a freelance, mainly as a sound engineer, touring and doing bands, doing sound for bands and stuff.
Good, we'll talk more about that soon. So see, in your growing up, obviously, employed through the National Air Traffic Service, was business always the plan for you? Did you always want to do your own thing? Clearly, you like touching on things with the 80s and 90s, having the recording studio, kind of working, whilst working, probably similar to what I do as well. What got you involved with that? Were you always focused on, I have to have something work-related going on?
Well, I really enjoyed my work in the National Air Traffic Services, and while I was working there, I never really envisaged leaving that and working in another industry. It was very, very late on when National Air Traffic Services was privatised, and I thought, well, if I'm going to work in private industry, I might as well, might have a go at running my own company. And so National Air Traffic Services were looking for people to, resign. There was a bit of a cash crisis, and they were given very good redundancy packages at the time, back in 2002, and I just decided I'll take a package and see what else I can do, and that's really what led me to, going into the events industry full time and getting realistic about the whole idea of working in the music industry and the events industry.
And the rest is history.
Well, yeah, it's a very varied history, but indeed the type of events we worked on is just so uncannily varied from concert. You can look and see it's concerts and festivals and things like that, and then it's corporate events, and then you find yourself working on sporting events, and you also find yourself working on air shows and aviation events. So it was a very good mixture, and sometimes it was like a full circle, because National Air Traffic Service is very much the aviation industry, and coming back to work in air shows or any events that were involved in aviation was like coming full circle and meeting up with the people he used to work with, when I was in that.
Brilliant. Right, okay, we're going to talk more about that, and we're going to talk about the big wins and the biggest lessons just after this.
Now streaming,
Ayrshire Insights, hosted by Elliot Boyce.
this is Now Ayrshire Radio.
Heard about the early days, now let's talk about the business journey. So Danny, what was your first big win in business?
First big win in business? Well, every step of the way I've had some kind of help with someone. You make friends with someone and they help you out. And I have to say that one of the big helps was Jim Prime from Deacon Blue. I met through Alex Knox, I think it was, when we were doing festivals in Ayr. I think they were called Coffee in the Lawn or something like that. And these were festivals created by Alex Knox and Jim Prime, both now departed, but really, really good guys. And Jim knew I was a sound engineer, and he asked me to come and do some work in the University of West of Scotland after they did all the smart concerts and stuff like that with Deacon Blue and various other things. And he, so I did some work at the University of West of Scotland, and teaching undergrads a bit about sound engineering and health and safety events and stuff like that. And Jim recommended me to a friend of his, Dave Pringle, who was a sound engineer. He was doing a lot of work all over the world, and he got me to start working at Tea in the Park. So I did 10 years at Tea in the Park as a sound engineer, and it was a real kind of baptism of fire at first, but I got used to it, and I learned a lot from going along to those events, as well as doing hundreds of other types of events, corporate events and all the rest of it. But that was a big step up. And during that time as well, we started doing a lot of events for local authorities as well. Like the three Ayrshires would hire us to do their recognition events and various other festivals and things like that. Like we'd work in Burns and all that, and Burns Fest as it was called. And one of the big wins was Stirling Council got us in to develop Stirling Hogmanay over a 5-year contract. And so we just excelled at this. But I had a really, really good team with Fiona and Mark Polly and Chris and so many others. And we got the contract to do 5 years at Stirling Hogmanay. They wanted to develop it and make it bigger. So we started off small. We had some of the kind of stars from television, from Stars in Your Eyes, and what was the other one? The one with Simon Cowell.
Oh, X Factor.
X Factor.
Yeah.
I think we had Wagner on one. He was one of the headline acts on it, and various things like that. And it grew from there, and then it culminated in having the Water Boys and Deacon Blue and the Proclaimers playing it, and the BBC. I had a contact in the BBC, and I contacted the BBC, talked to them, and they decided to move their main production for Hogmanay in Scotland from Edinburgh, and for 2 years they had it at Stirling.
Wow.
Yeah, it was huge.
So you grew it to the point where the BBC took it as the main Hogmanay event in Scotland.
Yeah, and then so everywhere in the UK saw events coming from Scotland. So like you saw the Proclaimers and Deacon Blue and Dougal MacLean playing on the stage at the Esplanade in Stirling. So we built that event up to quite a sizable event, and it was very, very successful. And Stirling, based on that, Stirling asked us to do Armed Forces Day UK, and this was really controversial. It got a bit political, but we did the event Armed Forces Day UK in Stirling, and that was a massive success as well. And it kind of drew us into working with the military. We booked Red Arrows and lots of other bits. We had a lot of tanks. We had tanks coming up from the south coast of England.
Danny the Tank Commander.
Well, it was bizarre because a lot of these tanks were coming from the place where I lived as a youngster when my dad was in the army, and apparently they caused blockages and motorways all the way up to Stirling. So we had lots of tanks and armour and stuff.
I'd only a wee bit of disruption get in the way of a good event.
Yeah, and the event also involved us going to meetings at Whitehall and meeting all sorts of people in the armed forces and Ministry of Defence. It was really, really eye-opening.
It really is a full circle. I mean, your life as growing up in army bases, working with the army, reading places at Whitehall, the event side and that, air shows, it's amazing. Now, talking big events, obviously Stirling Hogmanay, linked with the BBC, Proclaimers, Deacon Blue, the Water Boys, fantastic. Talk to me about what has to have been the biggest festival in Scotland, which sadly is no longer there, Tea in the Park. Were you involved with that?
Well, Tea in the Park, I was a minor part. I was there as a sound engineer. Mostly I was as a monitor engineer working on what would be the Red Bull transmission stage. I was in the BBC introducing stage briefly as well. So I moved around a number of different stages at Tea in the Park over 10 years, and it was just excellent. So sometimes you could just walk around the site and just take it all in. And you would start to get an understanding how such a big event like this is run. You'd look at things like the police and all the toilets that are needed and the infrastructure that's needed to do it, and just think what a gargantuan task it is to run an event like this and satisfy all the legal aspects of it as well. They're complex events to run. I
know what it's like. I mean, running an event with 4,000 or 5,000 and what's involved with that. But Tea in the Park, you're putting on essentially a city. You're bringing hundreds of thousands of people to one location, looking after them, making sure their welfare's there. It becomes a kind of place in itself when that event's running. Yeah,
it was a great experience. I mean, I've got to say though, I was a minor part. I was sound engineer at Tea in the Park, but it was 10 years. You could take in a lot, but a lot of that influenced the way I worked with them. When we were asked to do the Stirling Hogmanay, I'd learned a lot from from working on Tea in the Park, and that was quite a sizable event. A crowd of like 78,000 people in the Esplanade at Stirling.
Wow!
And we're putting it on the top of a hill in the middle of winter, so there's a lot of health and safety aspects and legislative aspects to running an event like that. And of course, there's just the logistics of it as well. You're up against the elements as well as time and people.
Absolutely.
So it's a multifaceted thing. And so working on bigger events, then doing that, I'd learned a lot and you could apply it. And so we had very successful events for Stirling.
So you spoke Stirling, we've spoken Tea in the Park. The air show, tell us about that.
The air show. Okay, the first time in my life I remember having any kind of thought about having air displays at Ayr Beach, and this is a kind of bizarre incident. As when I lived in Glasgow, I would come down and visit my aunts. I would be taken down to visit my aunts. This is probably when I was like 7 or 8 or something, and I'd live down in Irvine for a lot of the time. And I can remember one time we were going down to Irvine. And I kept on seeing these signs, air races. And in my head, I was just envisaging aircraft. Because, I wasn't very good at spelling in those days, obviously. So, I mean, the signs were for air races at the air race course, but I just had this idea, aircraft. And I said to man, is there aeroplanes at air? And she said, oh, yeah, there's aeroplanes that race up and down Air Beach. And so I just had these visions of, the red aircraft, the Schneider Trophy thing, that was the de Havilland 88. I think it's that's actually called the Grosvenor House, and it's still at the Shuttleworth collection down south, and Spitfires flying up and down Air Beach, racing each other. And this was in my head, and it's one of these childhood memories that stayed with me for ages. And I was always into aviation. I mean, probably I have to say that the first job I ever wanted to do was RAF pilot. When I was at school, I thought, oh yeah, I'd like to be a pilot. But that very quickly changed into being an electronics engineer, which I eventually became. But so that was my first thoughts of having an air show. But it developed a bit more when Spirit Aero. Well, we did some work with the airport and Spirit Aero Systems. We came up with Elvis Day. We proposed that to South Ayrshire Council. They went for it, and we had Elvis Day on the 50th anniversary of Elvis visiting.
Back in March 2010.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, were you on that? Did you go to that?
I remember being not on it, but I remember being at it, yeah.
Right. Yeah, so we had lots of Elvis impersonators and stuff, and that hit national television, actually. That got on the BBC throughout the UK. Spirit Aero Systems, we had a good contacts with them, because they asked us to do lots of corporate events for them, and they call them, it's very American, town halls, where the managing director would come and meet the workforce and tell them how it's all going to be, that kind of thing. And so we did quite a bit of work for Spirit Aero Systems, and they got in contact and said, do you hear about the Festival of Flight thing that's happening at Prestwich Airport? And I said, no, and they put me in contact with the Festival of Flight people, and they booked me to be the event manager for that. There was no air displays at it. It was all about films and artefacts, and there was a static display that we organised at one of the aprons at the airport. And I thought, well, why can't we not just have an air show? And not long after that, after the Festival of Flight, I went to, at the time it was Jackie and Trish at South Ayrshire Council. I said, can we have an air show? And after a bit of serious persuasion, and the thing is, though, you can go to a local council anywhere in Scotland or anywhere, and you can propose things to them, but you have to back it up with facts and figures and say, look, this is what air shows do, this is what the economic impact can be, this is how much it'll cost. So you have to do your research, and so I did all that. I did all the groundwork to work out how we were going to do this thing. Presented it to them. South Ayrshire Council put 35 grand into it. I put the rest of the money into it. And we had an experimental, we had the first air show in 2014. The massive success brought millions into the economy.
How many do you think attended that?
The first one, we kind of estimated it would be about 50, 60,000, something like that, the days it run. But funnily enough, that one was very profitable. That one made quite a bit of profit. The thing was still free to attend, but we sold special tickets and tickets to see the static.
Sponsors and all the other things associated with it.
Yeah. So and it worked out really, really well. And
so, how many air shows did you run before things moved on?
Well, we ran 5 of them between 2014 to 2018, and they were all very successful. Brought a lot of people to Ayrshire and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Did you work with anyone specifically during that kind of helped you through it in the aviation world? Oh,
there was loads of people. There's one of my good pals, Doug McLean. He was instrumental, and he's a long-term air traffic controller. He made good contacts. We both made good contacts in the military and civilian aviation world, and we were able to bring good planes to the air show.
Absolutely. So you run it for 5 years, but not anymore?
Not anymore. South Ayrshire Council ran with the idea. They adopted it. They run it themselves now, and it's now developed into the Festival of Flight. And good luck to them. And they're doing a great job, and it does a fantastic job of bringing people to Ayrshire, putting Ayrshire on the map, particularly South Ayrshire. Brings in a lot of footfall, bed nights. So it's good for the local economy. Also raises the profile of the airport, which is extremely important to the local economy.
Do you have a rough idea of what that brings in annually?
The air show, well, when we were running it, it was in the millions. As far as economic impact is concerned.
Yes, economic impact.
Yeah, and I think now it's still running into the millions, probably about 7 million, something like that. Kind of economic impact. And I mean, overall, I mean, a lot of people don't realise how important the wider events industry is to not just, Ayrshire, but the UK. Overall, the value of the events industry to the UK economy is 70 billion, Scotland about 11 billion, and to Ayrshire, that's the three Ayrshires, you're talking about, an economic impact of about £500 million for the local economy.
Fantastic. Now, amazing story. Some absolute wins throughout that. A lot of journey. Now, we've heard about the listeners' tenor bargain of the week, but up next, I'm looking for you to let me know your bargain of the week, plus finding out what drives Danny Anderson to give back locally.
You're listening to Ayrshire Insights with Elliot Boyce.
Now Ayrshire Radio.
So Danny, before we find out about your links to the community, the listeners have been in touch and have let me know their bargain of the week. So the question to you is, what's your bargain of the week this week, Danny?
Bargain of the week is get tickets for Troon Town Hall. I'd say the two great gigs coming up. They're both tribute acts. ABBA-mania on the 27th of December. The other one is AC/DC UK again at Troon Town Hall on the 28th of December. And if you really want a great bargain, do the double, get tickets for both of them.
There we go. Now, great link. So you're talking about Ayrshire community, Freckfest. What is Freckfest?
Well, Freckfest, many, many years ago, there was a chap called Willie Freckleton, who was the entertainment officer for I think in those days it was called Cunningham District Council, and then it evolved into North Ayrshire Council. But he booked all the bands that played at the Magnum and the Magnum Theatre. There was all sorts of big bands came to Ayrshire, well, North Ayrshire, I suppose, to Irvine. He would have bands like Oasis and Bjork playing at the Irvine Beach Park, huge events, and he booked bands like Spandau Ballet and Human League playing in the Magnum. Sadly, we don't have a concert hall of that size anymore in Irvine, which is hopefully going to change sometime in the next few years. But anyway, so Willie Freckleton, he was a lovely guy. He left us far too early. Myself and Craig Smart decided we should do something about that, and so we started up Freckfest. Freckfest initially started off as a festival in 2013 where we had various bands playing at the Magnum. I think it was headlined by the Magic Numbers. It just kind of snowballed from there and says, well, we didn't want to just stop. We just wanted to carry on. So to date, Freckfest put on numerous concerts of all sizes in all three of the Ayrshires. It mostly concentrates its work in Irvine at the Harbour Arts Centre, but it also put on shows regularly at Troon Town Hall and having the past in Kilmarnock at the Palace and the Grand Hall and in Ayr as well, at the Town Hall in Ayr. And we continue to put on concerts of various types. It's mostly music acts, but and our remit is to bring good music to Ayrshire, but also to promote new bands and new music from Ayrshire.
Local talent.
Yeah, local talent.
So you talk Freckfest. Is Freckfest a charity?
Freckfest is a charity, but in saying that, though, the activities of the charity also employ people. So people will spend money coming from all over the place. People have come from like America and Europe to come and see gigs. So they'll stay in hotels. So it causes footfall, bed nights, employs people in the bar. We have, people come along to the bar. There's the stewards. There's all the technicians that work at these events. They're all employed. So it contributes to the local economy, but it also helps promote music, brings a bit of joy to people, and also raises the profile of new and upcoming acts from Ayrshire as well. So that's generally what we do with it.
So talking about locals, you've got Freckfest. Obviously us here at Now Ayrshire Radio, we've been on the go now for the kind of best part of this year now, with the about since kind of middle point of the year, going from strength to strength. Why support local causes like us at Now Ayrshire Radio?
It's good for the morale of an area. People like to feel invested in their area and have a bit of joy in the area that they live and work in. And having arts and entertainments in an area makes a place an attractive place to live. And so it's all part of this cycle of making a place attractive. People want to live there, and you put on arts and events. You can grow these arts and events as areas get bigger and people get into the idea of spending money to go to concerts and festivals and events.
You did mention as well, in Ayrshire alone, it's circa 500 million an event. So
this is the kind of wider kind of events industry, not just concerts, but it's festivals.
But listen, every little helps too, and it's something that personally I'm quite a big advocate on. Somebody who works in the event management side is one of the other jobs that I've got, and one of the many. But yeah, listen, it's a massive thing. It would be amazing, I think, to see bigger and better festivals at Ayr, Irvine, Kilmarnock, whatever it may be, across the Ayrshires. And I think some people in the local authorities just now, and you'll know it as well, we're kind of crying out for varied acts. I mean, there was a thing back in Irvine that both of us, you and I, were involved in, Making Waves. I mean, to see something like that back in Irvine or something of that art would be fantastic.
Oh yeah, hopefully Making Waves or something similar to that will happen either next year or in 2027. The Making Waves Festival was great. It was headlined by numerous acts, but the big one, I suppose, was Delamitri. But we had lots of family-friendly stuff on as well. We even had the Red Arrows displaying at it as well. So
you just love booking the Red Arrows, don't you?
It was a right good mix of music and rock and roll and planes, you know. So
it sounds right up your street.
Oh yeah, really enjoyed it. But hopefully we could do something like that again. Through all this. This promotion of all these different events. I mean, Freckfest has raised the profile. It's won a few awards as well. I mean, the chairman of Freckfest, Craig Smart, who does a fantastic job.
Craig's a good guy.
Yeah, he's great. He got a British Empire medal just this year.
Fantastic.
For his efforts and his contribution to music and Ayrshire. And
Craig's got a varied CV as well with all different places he works. He's done fantastic. He's involved up in Lanarkshire way as well, isn't he?
Oh yes, he's been working in the music and the wider events industry for many years, working in local authorities. A really, really good chap, really knowledgeable. It's a pleasure to work with him on the Freckfest project. And there's also a great team of people involved in it. Mainly my part in it is the technical side of it, helping make things work. Sorting out the production side of things, you know, making sure there's stages and there's lights. And I mean, my main thing is being a sound engineer.
Yeah. You've also got somebody special that sits next to you also, your wife, Fiona.
Oh,
tell us about Fiona, because she's got some CV as well.
Oh, yeah. Fiona's worked in this industry for many, many years, and she's very, very knowledgeable about the whole events industry, and it's an absolute pleasure to actually work with her.
Fantastic.
and over many years. As well as, I mean, we met through being in bands together, you know, being performing.
And there's a funny story about your wedding, is there not?
Oh yeah, we didn't tell anyone it was a wedding.
And you performed at your own wedding?
Yeah, it was in Toontown Hall. We just decided we're going to have. Oh, I can't even. Oh yeah, it was. We told the whole family it was a birthday party for Fiona. So Fiona had her birthday party, an engagement, and a wedding all in a winner
on the same night.
And we didn't tell anyone that. Yeah, the people didn't know it was going to be a wedding.
Do you know what that just sums up everything that we've spoken about today. Right, we're going to finish the fun round and find out what's next for Danny Anderson just after this.
This is the Ayrshire Insights podcast with Elliot Boyce.
Now Ayrshire.
It's now time for 5 fast ones. So Danny, I don't want you to think about it. Just shout out the first answer that comes into your head. Are you ready to play 5 fast ones?
I'm ready to play.
Let's go. Favourite takeaway?
Indian.
Song that always lifts your mood?
Alive and Kicking, Simple Minds.
Best thing about Ayrshire?
The people.
Weirdest moment at work?
Oh, the time the undercarriage failed in a Vulcan.
Who plays you in a movie of your life?
That's got to be George Clooney with a Scottish accent.
There we go, right. Thanks for playing 5 fast ones. We'll be asking our guests every week to get involved. So Danny, what is next for Danny Anderson?
For me, well, the main thing I do now is I'm a live sound engineer. I go and mix bands anywhere in the world that anyone will pay me to go and mix them. So I've had a very busy year doing a mixture of original artists. The original artists I've been working with. Well, one of the ones I really enjoyed a few years back was Hipsway. That was a bucket list. One of my favourite bands from the 80s. Almost never off my turntable, and so actually doing sound for them in the Barrowlands was a huge tick. But this year I've been working a lot with Horse. I was on tour with Horse. She's another 80s icon in many circles, and I've been also working internationally with Midge doing sound for him at various places all over the world. I mean, one of my first gigs this year was in South Africa, doing a couple of festivals in Johannesburg and Durban. I'm doing front house sound for Midge, and then I've been in Poland and Italy and Germany
Keeping the carbon footprint going.
Oh goodness me! Yeah, well, I suppose I'm not really showing off my green credentials here, really, am I? Burning all that aviation fuel, but it's really enjoyable. I do like getting in planes and going places, and I do like looking at the window. I mean, if I don't get a window seat, I'm really, really annoyed for some reason.
I know, I'm an aisle seat guy. I like going to the toilet and not having to boil all two round about us.
No, I'm definitely a window seat. I mean, I'm the type of guy that'll post a takeoff and landing. I mean, how boring, but it's just, I mean, it just constantly amazes me that these things can fly. I mean, I did my first flight in an A380 earlier this year on the way back from Dubai, and it was just tremendous. You just look at a plane that size and think, how on earth does that fly?
I know, they really are amazing machines. Now, what's one thing you hope for Ayrshire's future?
Ayrshire's future, I hope we have lots more big festivals. Let's get it up the rankings there. Why can't Ayrshire have something of the status of a tea in the park or
Tea in the Park nearly was in Ayrshire, or was in Ayrshire? Was it not back before my time? Was there not? Was Tea in the Park not at one point destined for somewhere in Ayrshire, Arran or something?
I'm sure maybe they looked at Irvine Beach Park, but I had no idea. I know it went to Strathclyde Park, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Strathclyde Park.
Yeah, but something of that kind of stature. Why can't Live Nation / DF Concerts look at Ayrshire and do something down here? I mean, Freckfest, we already do some co-promotions with regular music in Troon Town Hall, which is really good. So if we can attract the big promoters to come and use some of the facilities here, like Irvine Beach Park or South Ayrshire's, Low Green or Kilmarnock.
But no, listen, there's plenty of places in Ayrshire, and it would be amazing to see. Now, Danny, throughout your journey, you've got a lot of people that you've worked with. Have you any kind of shout outs or anybody you'd want to say hello to today?
There's so many people I'd like to say thanks to. Some of them are not with us anymore. I mean, thanks to Alex Knox, thanks to Jim Prime, Craig Smart, my wife Fiona, and my kids. I
know. So one of whom is kind of taking that up now and is doing more events. I mean, I've worked with Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel's working in events. He's working up at Drive-In Movies for It Is On right at this moment. And Lewis flies planes, is a professional pilot for British Airways. So
they're both kind of taking an aspect of who is Danny Anderson and jumped involved with each of them, with Daniel in events and the Lewis flying flights.
Yeah, I suppose so. But that's the thing, though. You do things, you inspire your kids, you do the best to help them out, and you have a lot of fun along the way. And one thing leads to another. You start off with a Microsoft Flight Simulator, and then you end up flying a 777 or an A320.
That was what I've been Lewis over the years. It was his full focus. I've been out in a flight with Lewis from Prestwick Airport in his journey as well. Amazing what he's managed to achieve.
Oh yeah. We're very proud of what he's managed to do. Getting into British Airways is no mean feat. Quite a tough airline to get to work for. Daniel is well respected as both as a technologist and event organizer as well. I mean, you work with them in some of your events, and getting to work with both your kids, or hang out with both your kids, is just fantastic. It's just really great. So thanks to my kids, who I find are inspirational. Just when they were younger, the thing about children is nothing's impossible, and you sometimes take that on board yourself. I think, well, just be a bit more childish and think nothing is impossible, really.
I think there's been a few times that Daniel and I have gone to put sound systems in the background. You're going, what are you two doing? But guess what? We still make it work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Goodness me, yeah, that's when there's still a bit of that happens in the events industry, where sometimes you just come across some kind of obstacle and you think, how do I solve this one? And it does challenge you sometimes, the events industry.
Danny, thanks for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure.
This is the Ayrshire Insights podcast.
Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe now.